Hello everybody, True here, welcome to another True review. Today I'm bringing you Bert Rebooted on the Xbox One. Now, just to start off with, I always like to try and find the good in games, even how bad some of them are. But this one is very hard for me to actually find anything positive to say about it. So let's start by going on a quick history lesson of what Bert actually is. Bert is a 1982 arcade game. It's actually highly regarded in the arcade community as one of the, I think it's in the top 5 of the top 5 all-time arcades of the golden age of arcades, which was in the 80s. So it's a highly regarded game. So if you're going to tinker with it, if you're going to reboot it, you have to research your source material of what Bert actually is. And unfortunately, they haven't. Now, how Bert came about his name, the game started off as something called Project Cubes, because as we all know, they don't release the full titles of the games. They don't do that nowadays. They have a code name for things, so if it gets leaked, people don't know what they're actually working on. So yeah, it was called Project Cubes. Now the developer of the game wanted to actually call it Snots and Boogers, which I've no clue why they wanted to call it that, to be honest with you, but got to leave. The people who were producing and paying for the development of this didn't like that name at all, and thankfully so. So they went back to the original project name, which was, like I say, Cubes. And I think one of the people who worked at Gottlieb in charge of making the decision was very fond of the name Hubert. So they combined the two together. So we got Bert because he jumps on cubes, and they like the name Hubert. And that's it, really. So there you go. That's the game. You play a character called Bert. He jumps on cubes, turning them into different colours. So we load up Rebooted. What do you get? He's jumping on hexagons. He's not called Hexibert, he's called Bert. He's called Bert for a reason. He jumps on cubes. It's like changing Pac-Man into a square. It's like having Pac-Man collect triangle dots or something. It's just not right. You just don't do that with a classic. He's called Bert. The clue is in the name, what he should be jumping on, not hexagons. So there's the first thing that annoyed me with this game straight off the bat, and I hadn't even started playing it. Then I just saw it load up and we got hexagons on the screen. Then we go to the controls. Bert in the arcades and Bert classically, you just push the direction you want to go in and he will jump in that direction. Now you have to tap the A button for every single jump you want to make. And because all you do is jump and the only way you can move is by jumping, you're just basically constantly tapping the A button. So what's the point of it? There's just no point of tapping the A button. You can't walk anywhere, you can't do anything other than jump. So why do you have to constantly tap an A button? When the classic 1982 arcade game, it worked perfectly fine. Then with the controls, half the time they don't work. Half the time they don't want to do anything that you tell them to do. You end up jumping off the pyramid, you end up jumping into squares you don't want to go in, and that becomes a massive problem, because most of your lives are not lost through your own fault. Most of the lives are just because the game decides to do something different or just decides not to actually work. There's some of the late levels as well where you have to jump on the squares twice to change them into the colour that you need to win the level, or ones where if you jump on the squares twice they revert back to the original colour. That causes a massive problem, because one small mistake on those levels, especially the revert levels, and then it messes up your entire plan of attack of how you was going to attack on that level. Then we get onto the levels themselves. There's hardly any actual content in this game. You have 40 levels, which you get 3 stars awarded for each of them. Now thankfully they have actually changed something from the original release of this game. You used to only be able to earn 1 star per attempt, even if you met the criteria for all the other stars, but they've changed that now thankfully. So that's one good thing I can say about it. They've actually listened to criticism, well, partly anyway. But the problem that you have is these levels, even though there's 40 levels, they recycle the same floor plans of the maps. You've literally got about 6, maybe 7 if I'm generous, different actual structures to jump on, spread over the 40 levels. And it's just basically the enemy configurations that change, or if you have to jump on the blocks more than once, or if they revert back to their natural colour. It's just ridiculous. There's just no content in this whatsoever. Now turn to the gameplay itself, it just doesn't feel like Qbert anymore, because you're not jumping on hexagons, you've no longer got your four-way movement, which again was classic Qbert, and they've introduced loads and loads of new enemies which just overcomplicate things, and some of the levels themselves, the difficulty spikes is ridiculous. How the game is structured is each level you have to clear 3 rounds of the level, each one getting progressively harder, and you have 5 lives to do that. But some of the levels are ridiculous. There's these characters who drop down and they change the colour of the squares back to the original colour, basically, and making you have to jump on them again. And some of the levels, it just rains these guys constantly, so you're fighting a losing battle. I'll see if I can put some of it in the footage actually of one of the levels. It's just absolutely insane. You just don't get a respite to actually be able to get the blocks changed into what you want them to be changed into. It's just absolutely insane. And these difficulty spikes just happen randomly. They happen midway through a round. The first map can be easy, the second map can be a nightmare, and the third one's easy again. It just makes no sense. It's like they just stuck a pin in a page and just chose a difficulty level for each different one. And it introduces loads of new characters as well, which weren't in the classic arcade game, but none of them actually bring anything good to the table. The most noticeable one is one called Uppercut, who's basically like a springy kind of character who will bounce you around the play area, and because the play areas are so narrow and full of gaps, you get touched by him, and he encompasses probably about a 6 square area. You just get buffeted off the pyramid, off the level, and it's just absolutely insane. And it's more of a matter of luck if you complete the levels. And if that wasn't to top it all off, we do have the original game included in this package as well. So, hooray, you might say, we're going to get a classic arcade game. No, we're not. I actually play Qbert quite a bit. I know the game quite well. I've played it on MAME, I've played it on my CoinOps Xbox, I've played it, quite a lot, and for some reason they have ramped the difficulty level onto one of the higher settings, and there's no means of changing it, so it's brutally difficult. It's definitely not on default. On default I can quite easily progress to about the 4th, 5th round on Qbert without much trouble. On this version of Qbert, my word, it's an absolute nightmare. They've definitely bumped it onto one of the higher difficulty levels in the switches, so I don't know why they've chosen to do that, but it just makes the game very inaccessible to a lot of people unless you're a Qbert master. It's just absolutely insane. And then unfortunately, the control issues raise themselves again in the classic mode. Games back in the early 80s and probably even up to the early 90s, a lot of them used 4-way sticks. You had no diagonals, so you couldn't actually hit a diagonal direction. Now, because we're all using modern controllers nowadays, we have 8 directions. If you hit one of the 4 directions which don't actually do anything, the game won't do anything. And obviously with the sticks nowadays, they're built to be very sensitive. It's very difficult. If you're slightly off a horizontal, it just doesn't work. You get no input whatsoever. I mean, quite why they chose to go down that route, I have absolutely no clue. They should have built in some kind of margin for error, and it makes the classic mode almost unplayable. You're just best abandoning the sticks completely and actually using the D-pad. Then when you actually do use the D-pad, you do actually discover that instead of actually up, down, left, right, which was quite perfectly acceptable on loads of home versions of Qbert, even going back to machines as basic as the Atari 2600, up, down, left, right worked perfectly fine to navigate the pyramids. For some reason they choose that you've got to hit the diagonals. So it's very, very unnatural, it feels very, very wrong, and there's just so much wrong with it. They've just absolutely botched a classic game up and added a rebooted version on, which is worse. Achievement-wise, achievements are a bloody nightmare on this game. Achievements, you're looking at a very hard time to get the 1,000 points. You've got to get to round 5 on the classic mode, but as I say, because they ramp the difficulty level up onto an insane mode, that's going to take a lot of doing, in my opinion. Rebooted mode, again, you've got to complete all the levels. I've managed to get up to level 38 out of 40, and level 38 just honestly takes the biscuit. It's split up into 2 islands, and whilst you're move on to one island and get no means of getting back, the other island is being reverted back to the original colour due to it raining. the green guys who changed the blocks back. So it's absolutely designed by a right set of numpties. I just can't recommend this game. It's a cheap purchase. It's less than, I think it's £5 odd, £5.50 on the UK marketplace. Not sure of US pricing, but just keep your money. I just can't recommend this game at all. Just get a Atari 2600, buy that cartridge. It's a lot better, honestly. So I'm going to give QBert a fantastic 1 out of 10. I just can't recommend anybody buy this. I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole if I was you. So I hope you enjoyed that review, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and do remember to like, comment and subscribe on the video, and follow me on my various social media pages. It does help me build the channel. Thanks for watching.